Well, first of all, I reject the notion that the federal government can send troops into the state of Illinois. The fact is that the president has created an incendiary moment here. He wants to change the subject from his failure over coronavirus, a miserable failure, now seeing a moment when there is unrest because of the injustice that was done to George Floyd, that he now wants to create another topic and something where he can be the law and order president. He's been a miserable failure. What I talked about on the call today was the fact that his rhetoric is inflaming passions around the nation. He should be calling for calm. He should be calling for bringing the temperature down. He's doing the exact opposite.
Well, Governor, what he just did was hold up a Bible, making it clear that that's what he stands for. He's the I mean, I don't know. What words would you put on it? God is behind him. He's the president of law and order and of godliness. What do you make of that very bizarre moment?
Look, he continually lies. The fact is that God is on the side of those who stand up for American values, those who stand up for freedom, those who stand up for the rights of everyone in our nation. And that means standing up for the peaceful protesters. You saw what he did to the peaceful protesters. Those are federal troops under his command. He obviously wanted them pushed back. He wanted to create a moment. He wanted tear gas in the streets in Washington, D.C., so that he could look like he needs to bring order to the nation. And the fact is that he should stay out of our business. We are working hard in the state of Illinois to bring down tensions. And look, every day he has inflamed racial tension.
Is there anything, Governor, that would, in your mind, justify what just happened, which is peaceful protesters there were rubber bullets, there was tear gas, there were flashbangs, they were moved out, right? They were peaceful. There had been nothing indicating anything otherwise, but that is how they were moved out, so that he could walk across the street with his staff for that moment with the Bible.
It's precisely the wrong way to handle that. Peaceful protesters have a right to be there. I saw what happened. I was watching CNN when all of a sudden the troops moved forward, and then they started pushing the protesters, throwing tear gas canisters. This is not the way we behave in the United States. Our law enforcement are out there on the streets trying to protect people. They're not, at least here in Chicago, we're not in the business of trying to put down peaceful protest.
Governor, tell me more about your phone call that you had with the president today.
Well, we listened for a while as the president said some, frankly, outlandish things, crazy things. He talked about dominating the streets in all of our cities today. And then, after he said all of that, there were a few governors, mostly Republican governors, who got on and said, positive, complimentary things about the president. And I couldn't believe that nobody was calling him out on his rhetoric. And so when I was called on, I just had to say what I said, expressing the values of the people of Illinois. We're a state that produced Barack Obama in the presidency. We produced Abraham Lincoln, Ulysses S. Grant. We have a long history of standing up for equality and against racial injustice. And it's time that more people stood up and said something, because this president every day, and I've said it from the beginning, the man is a racist, a misogynist, a homophobe, a xenophobe. He's got to go.
So I want to play, as we're watching this, your exchange with the president when you called out his rhetoric, his inflammatory rhetoric, as you called it, and what he said in response. Here it is.
I've been extraordinarily concerned with the rhetoric that's been used by you. It's been inflammatory. The rhetoric that's coming out of the White House is making it worse. And I need to say that people are feeling real pain out there. And we've got to have national leadership in calling for calm.
Well, thank you very much, Dave. I don't like your rhetoric either, because I watched it coronavirus, and I don't like your rhetoric much either. I think you could have done a much better job, frankly. But that's okay. We don't agree with each other.
So What did you want to, then tonight he comes to the Rose Garden and you heard him. He refers to it as an angry mob. He says, I am your president of law and order. Did anything he say in the Rose Garden show that he in any way heard what you said?
No, it's clear that he doesn't listen to anyone that tells him the truth. I did tell him the truth. This rhetoric, this inflammatory rhetoric is bad for the country. When we had the riots in Ferguson, President Obama started to bring the temperature down. He talked about calling for calm. When Martin Luther King was killed, Robert Kennedy stood up and talked about seeking justice, and bringing the tension down within the country. This president doesn't understand any of that. He probably hasn't read any of that, knows no history, and doesn't understand the job of the president to truly speak to the values of the nation.
So you said on that call, he said that you all needed to dominate the protesters. That's what he said, and that fits with what he just said here. But I just want to be clear, when he says every governor should deploy the National Guard in full, that's what he said in the Rose Garden. That's what he wants you to do. I guess the first question is, do you plan to do that, Governor Pritzker?
Well, we have called out the National Guard to be a support mechanism for our local law enforcement, and they're doing that, frankly, and they're doing a good job. We also have our state police assisting local law enforcement all across the state, wherever they have requested it. So the president just doesn't know what he's talking about. And when he says in every state, well, what if there aren't any riots in every state? What if there aren't any there isn't any violent behavior or looting? I think he just wants to create a tone in which, it's law and order versus people standing up for their rights, and he'd just as soon run over people's rights.
So, Governor, what will you do if he does, he says he's mobilizing the U.S. military, but he says that if you don't solve the problem, he will deploy the U.S. military quickly and solve the problem for you. You've categorically said you reject his ability to send U.S. military to the state of Illinois, but what will you do if he tries to move forward?
Well, it's illegal. Jeffrey Toobin just confirmed what I have known, which is it's illegal. He can't do it. We won't request military assistance here in the state of Illinois. I can't imagine any governor is going to do that. And it's ridiculous. The situation that we're in today is one which requires a leader who will stand up and meet the challenge, by the way, of addressing police accountability, making sure that we're standing up for peaceful protest. Yes, of course, we want looters to go to prison, to jail. We want to make sure that we're catching people who are lighting fires or causing any violence. But the vast majority of people who are out there in Washington, D.C. and here in Illinois are standing up for peaceful protest and standing up against what happened in Minneapolis to George Floyd.